Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. So today we get to take a look at the all-new 2024 Land Rover Defender 130 Outbound. This model is finished off in eager gray and the MSRP is just over $84,000. Now this is powered by the 3-liter V6. It's paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission, pumping out 395 horsepower, 406 pound-feet of torque. That power sent through the all-wheel drive system, propelling this 5,600-pound SUV from 0 to 60 in 6.3 seconds. It has a top speed of 119 miles an hour. It also has a fuel capacity of 23.8 gallons. You'll expect to see around 16 miles per gallon in the city, 18 out on the highway. This has a wheelbase of 119 inches. Its overall length, including the spare tire, is 211.7. It has a width of 82.9, a height of 77.6. At its highest level, ground clearance measures in at 11.5 inches, and it also has an approach angle of 37.5 degrees, a breakover angle of 27.8. Its departure angle is 28.5, and it can wade through 35.4 inches of water. As we move on to the exterior styling now for this Land Rover Defender, you'll notice right off the bat, Defender is spelled out at the front section of the hood to give it a really unique design. Land Rover is also off-centered to that driver's side. This does have a set of LED headlights, DRLs, and turn signals with a squarish design for the entire surround, which is finished off in gloss black. There's also a lot of cutouts up front to provide additional cooling. So there's the upper grille with that Land Rover badge. There's also a cutout just underneath that, and then plenty of mesh in this lower section. Now this does have a forward-facing camera, all the parking sensors. There's also LED fog lights that are tucked away on both sides, and then even more gloss black on the far corners with even some more air inlets to provide additional cooling. You'll notice there's also a large inlet just on the outside of that fog light as well. Now up top, you also notice this tread-like design on both sides of the hood, and then some nice lines that come down through the middle there. Now as we work our way to the side, this has a set of 20-inch wheels wrapped in a Goodyear all-terrain tire. You'll notice too they have a little bit of a beefy design to them just to provide this with additional traction. Now you'll also notice too, more of that gloss black surrounds the fender arches. It's in the entire lower panel of the doors there. There's also a Defender trim accent with a bunch of cutouts. This has gloss black for the side mirrors, which also have a turn signal and a camera. And then there's more gloss black on the A-pillar, and it surrounds all of the window trim leading all the way to the back. Now this does have roof racks up top as well. This can hold right around 370 pounds. So you can put any items up top, rooftop, tent, anything like that. There's also this Land Rover cargo box on the passenger side. You can unlock that and store some smaller items in there, just depending on what you have and what you need to get out of the way. And then as far as the side profile design goes, this is stretched to be a 3-row SUV, which is an option for that 3rd row. But I think it has a really nice design to it. One thing I will point out is that these are not transparent for the back. So you cannot see through them, you can't see out of them from the inside as well, which is an interesting design to go with. And as we work our way to the back, this has the full-size spare mounted on the back. There's also a backup camera, which is just above the license plate. LED taillights on both sides, along with the 3rd brake light up at the top. There is a camera on the back of the shark fin antenna. That is for the rear view mirror, just to get some better visibility. And then there's tow hooks in the back, all the parking sensors, and with the optional tow hitch, this can tow right around 8,200 pounds. So you can hook up a lot of equipment to this and tow it wherever you need to. On this driver's side, there's the ladder, so you can just pull that out, and that gives you access to get up onto the roof, which is a really cool feature to see. But let's work our way into the cargo space now. We have the swing gate that goes towards the passenger side. It's pretty lightweight, even with that full-size spare. We have the shocks to assist with that. Now on the inside, Defender spelled out. There's also a little bit of space. So if you want to place some additional items in the door panel, you can do that. And then for this model, this does not have the 3rd row, which is very interesting because you have the sunroof up top for your 3rd row passengers. There's grab handles too, and then a lot of storage both on the driver and the passenger side, as well as climate vents for what would be your 3rd row passenger. So it looks like it's an option because up front, there's a little bit of storage space where you can place some items, In back, there's some access to the toolkits for your spare tire changes, and that is it. So there is no third row for this particular model. This right here is the cover, so you can put that in place and lock it in so you can hide some items in the back if needed. There's also some hooks where you can place some groceries. But without the third row, or if you had the third row folded down, you have a lot of space behind that middle row. You can of course fold down that middle row to give yourself that much more interior space, but behind the second row, there's tons of space. So if you're looking for a large SUV, this is definitely going to give you the space that you need. Now on this driver's side, you can also raise and lower the rear end of this vehicle. So with it in the off-road setting too, just by pushing that button, we can lower the load height in the back. So whatever items you have, you can easily put them into the back. And then this is just as lightweight to swing closed, and we can work our way to the middle seat. Now, if you do have the vehicle locked, you can just push on this button to unlock it and then push on that button to lock it back. Now, this door panel has a really unique design to it because of all of the exposed screws that you see surrounding the panel. Now, there's brushed aluminum for the release handle. This has the Meridian sound system. There's a little bit of storage down in the lower section of the door. And then all of these materials are going to be very durable. They're going to be easy to clean. So if you are taking this off-road or just in general it gets dirty, it's going to withstand all of those conditions. Now, as we work our way to the second row, we have the black leather seats. And what is interesting to still see, if I actually pull on this control by the headrest, I can slide the seat forwards as if I was hopping into the third row. So Land Rover has kept everything for this, for the third row, even though this model does not have it. So interesting to see that. You could slide that forwards, I guess, if you need a little bit more cargo space. But hopping into this, even with it in off-road setting too, it's not all that bad. And at 5'10", I have plenty of space. There's also storage nets behind both front seats. There's air vents in the middle. There's also auxiliaries, and then a bunch of climate adjustments that you can go through using these rotary dials. You can control where you'd like the air to go, and it's a really easy layout to use. Now, as far as headroom goes, I have plenty of headroom. I have 4 or 5 inches. I can even recline these seats slightly just to be a little bit more comfortable. It is very spacious for this middle row. So you could have 3 people in here very comfortably. Now in the middle, there's 2 cup holders along with the armrest, and you can even fold down this middle seat individually. You'll notice too that the backs of the seats have a really nice grippy material, just like in back. So that way you're not puncturing any of the leather when you have these folded down. So you can throw in some items and it's going to be that much more durable for any of those items. And then as we work our way to the front door panel, it's just like the rear. However, there's all the window adjustments along with the memory seating controls, window adjustments, lock and unlock, and then a lot more storage space in the lower section. Everything else is the same with all the trim accents. Defender is also down on the door sill, and then a same design for these front seats. They are power operated. All of those controls are down on the side. Now as we hop into the front, we have the leather steering wheel with a really nice design for these spokes. Let's fire this up and take a listen to that exhaust. And then coming back to the digital gauge cluster, on the left side, there's miles per hour along with the fuel level. Right side, there's the tach and engine temperature. And then within the middle of those, you can actually go through a lot more info using the controls on the left side of the steering wheel. So for the current setup, there's voice commands along with tuning, Bluetooth, a favorites button. There's also driver assistance and a scrolling dial. Now, if I push on the circle right in the middle, you'll notice that will change to arrows. Now we can use those arrows to go through this information. So there's the info panel where you can scroll through and look at some various information, pulling up the navigation. You have audio, trip information, just some basics that you can go into. Even monitor the center and rear locking differential, and then you're back to the driver assistance. Now if I go back to display layout, you can actually change how you would like to see this. So the current setup was the 2 dial. Now we have 1 dial right in the middle, and then you can still go through this info over on the left side. So if we go back into that, we have right panel info that you can scroll through. and the left panel. So pretty interesting to see those adjustments. And if I go back into the display layout, you can even just pull up the map and have that in full screen. So it just depends on what you're doing for the day. Let's go back to the 2-dial. And then if I go back into the rest of this information, we have trip selection, your head-up display, and then even vehicle settings that you can go into and adjust. Now if I go into the driver assistance now, I will just hold on this button and that will allow it to pop up in the infotainment system. So you have high, custom, and low. You can go into some of those tech features and set them up the way that you would like to. And then over on the right side of the steering wheel, there's your lane keeping assist. There's also cruise and adaptive cruise control settings along with the heated steering wheel. Now over on the left side, the e-brake is located down below. There's a small cubby over on this driver's side, so you can place some items there as needed. For the head-up display, it's just showing miles per hour along with the speed limit sign, and then there's more of that durable material running across the entire dash. There's also 2 air vents. You have the speaker up top too, and then working our way back to the infotainment system, let's start over on this left side with home. So for this, we have the slope assistance, so you can push on that, and it will also show your degrees, your altitude. You have the locking center and rear diffs that you can go into. There's also degrees for your pitch and roll. You have wade settings, so this is for the water, just to show you the line as to how far you can drive through a creek. And then you have a few other things that you can go through and configure. Now if we go back to home, there's the compass, your air quality, you can look at your wheel information, some of the other things that I just showed, even your energy impact. And then if we go back into these settings here, you have a lot of apps that you can go through. Now on this left side, there's shortcuts to your navigation along with phone, and then you have music as well. So that's pretty much it for this screen. You can also push on the parking sensors to pull up the camera system, where you have a lot with the additional cameras that this vehicle has. You even have 3 different angles for the front and rear. So if you are off-roading, you have a lot of different angles. You can get into the 360 view again and go through all of these angles. And you can even go to the off-road settings as well. And now you have that split style along with being able to monitor the suspension and wheels. If I push on this button, now we have an underneath hood view. So again, if you're off-roading, you can see what's in front of you. And then there's also a towing one. You can just see the top of that spare tire, so it doesn't really affect your backup camera, which is great to see. There's also some settings over on that right side as well that you can go through depending on what you would like to do. So it's a really good size, has a lot to offer. Now underneath that, there's even more controls, including the gear selector. So if I push that forwards, we have the backup camera, of course. There's also drive and then the sport mode, so you can shift using that. Park is located on the top. Now there's power and volume for the audio on the far right side, and then within the middle, there's a lot of climate adjustments. There's also the downhill assist control, engine start stop. These controls here are how you can raise and lower the vehicle. So as you've seen, it was in the highest setting. I can push it all the way down and get into the access height, which is the lowest that it will go. Underneath that, there's traction control along with a low range system. You have some more auto adjustments for the climates. And then what's really cool about both of these rotary dials is that they have multiple purposes to them. So as you can tell right now, we currently have the temperature for driver and passenger. If I push on this and rotate it to the right, that's for the heated seats. Left is going to give you the ventilated seats. If I push on it one more time, the temperature dial will appear. And if I push on the fan speed, now we can adjust the fan speed for the climate adjustments. And then up top, this is actually for the different driving modes. So there are several modes. There's eco, there's also grass, gravel, and snow, mud and ruts, sand, there's rock crawl, wade, and then a configurable setting. So just depending on what you're doing for the day and the mode that you need to get into, when you push on that again, it will take it back to the temperature. So very cool to see that. Underneath that, there's some auxiliaries with a lot of storage space. It actually goes well up underneath, so you can place some items there. We have more of the exposed screws. There's 2 cup holders, wireless charging, more of that durable material. And when I open this up, this is actually the cooler. So you have 2 different settings. You can put food and water, whatever items that you have that need to stay cool. If you're going on a trip, you can place them there. Glove box also has a good bit of space. And there's also an auxiliary on this side here with Defender. So it's really cool. They give you additional space and storage even on that passenger side. Now up top, this is the digital rear view mirror. Without it, you can still see above that spare tire and out the back window. But if you need additional visibility, you have that camera system. And then up top, there's the controls for the sunroof as well as the sunshade. So that goes to just above the headrest in the second row, and you can even see that third row, or what would be the third row, in the far back there. As far as visibility goes, as I mentioned earlier, the panels in the back are not transparent, so that is a pretty big blind spot. Over this left side, you have the same thing, but you can see out of that second window in the back. Now, I will be driving this for a few days before we get this out on the road for the test drive, so I will let you know what it's like over that right shoulder. As we set off now behind the wheel for the all-new Land Rover Defender, like I said just before this clip started, I've drove this about 200 or 300 miles so far, and I've had a lot more seat time behind the wheel to really see how this vehicle is to drive. And honestly, the only complaint that I have with this is the fact that there's no massaging seats for this. I'm not sure if that's an option. I haven't seen it just yet, but for the price tag of this vehicle, I feel like it would have at least a comfort, some kind of creature comfort like that. Everything else is very, very nice. This rides incredibly well with the adaptive suspension. And as far as power goes from this V6, it's actually pretty healthy. Just a mild acceleration, and we're up and moving. So for the weight of this, I think the power is pretty adequate for the V6. But it's such a comfortable highway cruiser. I did a mini road trip with it, and out on the highway, a little bit of wind noise, but it's really not that bad. And it's so comfortable to drive. I love all of these materials too. While they may not be quite as premium feeling as you would expect for a vehicle of this price point, they do have a nice feel to them. They're a little bit more durable. So the goal with the Defender, you know, bringing back some of that kind of old school Defender to the retro style or a modern vehicle that it is now, with kind of the same look, but some materials that are going to be a little bit better to withstand kind of anything that you throw at it. I think it's really nice. And then, like I mentioned earlier, with the visibility, with both of those third windows being non-transparent, honestly, it hasn't been all that hard to see around. I haven't even noticed not being able to not see through them. So using both side mirrors, of course, looking over both shoulders, it's actually helped and been okay. If I do this, obviously I can't see through it at all. And then let's pop it into the manual setting here, and we will go down into second gear, give it another acceleration. Wow, the shifter's actually pretty responsive. As soon as you pull on that, you're into the next gear. You really only have to do that if you're towing, or if you happen to take this off-road. With that adaptive suspension, you can get a lot more ground clearance. However, with this vehicle, with the Defender, or at least with the 130 being aimed at a 3-row SUV, wheelbase is a lot longer, so it's not something you're going to take off-road like you would with a 2-door Defender or the 90, for example. So it has some off-road characteristics to it, but not really something you're going to take off-road, maybe some gravel roads or something like that. And in second gear, here we go. And just like that, we're up to speed. So pretty quick, larger size SUV, but this is what it's like to be behind the wheel for the Land Rover Defender. Like I said, I think this is a really cool interior. I think all the materials are very nice. You definitely sit high up, so it feels like you're in a pickup truck or, you know, another larger SUV. It's definitely something that is high feeling, and of course it can go higher if you raise it up a little bit. But seating position is super comfortable. We have the armrest along with the cooler. It's odd that this is blank here, or it goes all the way through to the bottom, so there's not a lot of usable storage here. You can use the cup holders like I am right now. You can place your phone here, but if you want to place just something right there, it's going to go all the way down to the bottom. So it's a little bit hidden out of the way there. But other than that, very, very nice. I haven't had any real complaints with it. Driving it, everything seems to work fine. Everything's very functional. We have the head-up display, which is nice to see. And as far as its handling goes, we got a few twisties right here that we can test it. It's not bad for the weight of this. It carries its weight well. So if we're just taking some turns like this at a normal rate of speed, we don't have any sport mode or anything to stiffen up the suspension, but it does great. Nothing too hard of a turn, but for those that didn't have to slow down, basically it's like you're riding on a cloud. That adaptive suspension gives you a very, very comfortable ride, as well as being able to adjust the height depending on what you are doing. And then obviously we have the camera system there. Without it, you can still see above that full-size spare, so it doesn't really hinder. And then obviously, you know, you can't see that way, but you have your side mirrors too, and then you really don't need to see out that way since you have the window there. A little bit of blockage from that ladder, but I mean, it's still got a lot of glass. And then as we merge back out into traffic, we got that power to get us back up and moving. But I think that's going to wrap it up for the Land Rover Defender 130. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, give it a huge thumbs up. Consider smashing that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our daily uploads. And I will see you all in the next video.